Greetings and salutations, artisans. I'm going to turn my light over there, toot toot, so it reflects off my wall. This is my unboxing overview review video of... I don't know why I add the unboxing part to that, because I've already opened this up several times before, and technically I'm taking stuff out of boxes, so that's why I do it. But anyways, this is the 4-pack Call of Cthulhu Keeper decks. This contains the Curious Characters deck, the Phobias deck, the Unfortunate Events deck, and the Weapons and Artifacts deck. This is all the standard stuff in the Keeper's rulebook, as well as the Investigator's Handbook, and some fun little aids on top for your Call of Cthulhu Keepers out there. It is 4 decks. I have already covered this one once before, and I'm holding this one up next to these ones, this 4-pack, just as a size reference. These are slightly larger than standard cards. Oh dear. Normal sized cards are about this big compared to these cards. That is a Paladin deck for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, or as Wizards of the Coast likes to go, Dungeons & Dragons Next. They generally try to avoid using 5th edition over the years, but people keep using it on them. But anyways, whoop! Oh, there's still a card stuck in there. They're all fairly large cards. They're actually fairly well made. They're sturdy. This happens to be the Phobia deck. Backside of it, highly reflective. Anyways, there is actually a good number of cards in here. Oh dear goodness. Does it actually say on here? Huh. 48 cards. And each one of these decks are about 48 cards. I keep putting them... I'm one of those weird people that likes to put stuff back in the sleeves. Each one of these decks are 48 cards. Yeah, all of them are 48 cards. I never really bothered checking it before. But here is the little card, instruction card, explaining how a Phobia deck works. And then these are the various Phobia cards. So I just quickly flip through a few, because I can't really... You got a variety here. I'm not going to show them all. But anyways, then there's also a credits card on the back side. But anyways, I think I think this is the most appropriate one. By the way, this is the fear in which H.P. Lovecraft had. Xenophobia. H.P. Lovecraft was never an artist. He was actually a xenophobe. A xenophobe is a person who is terrified of things that are not exactly like themselves, and things that are entirely new to them. So, as H.P. Lovecraft got older, he worked his way through his xenophobia and made friends with black people, and he actually had a good friend that was a black person, and he also got married to a Jewish woman. He realized that it was a bad thing, and he worked on it, but you have to keep in mind that he was a person of the time. He was an incredibly intelligent person, an incredibly troubled person, but he worked with it. Xenophobia. They are trying to get me. You have a fear of strangers, foreigners, anyone you perceive as different, foreign, or unfamiliar, strange, is a potential threat, someone who sends you heart racing in terror. Unfamiliar people cannot be trusted as their motives, agendas are unknown. Strangers hide dark secrets, and they could be anything from murderers to those who want to steal your identity so that they can take your life and things. You experience extreme mood swings when you faced with people who are different from you. From anger to aggression to even outright terror, any situation where you are unfamiliar territory and where you are exposed to foreigners, strangers, will make you anxious or angry. Exposure causes overwhelming response, and all actions while in a phobic state, other than fleeing from it or fighting it if in combat, are made with one penalty die. Successful use of psychoanalysis skill will ease your anxiety, allowing you to hold things together temporarily. People kind of have to wonder, like, how do you DM with that horrible voice? And, like, I actually put on all their voices.
I do this quite well, okay? And I do it really good.
I actually have, like, thousands and thousands of voices, and, like, I forget half of them, and then I'm, like, shifting through them, and I like to, I can do this! Oh, yes! If I try harder, I can actually get it, like, reverbing more and actually get my voice to actually duplicate itself. So I'm talking, but it sounds like two people saying the exact same thing at the exact same time. But I have to be careful with that one because it gets me coughing and puking. And there's another example of the Phobia deck. This Phobia deck is, as I said, is 48 cards. It has excellent artwork that actually illustrates quite well the fears that are on the cards. So with handy dandy do, it's great for you and great for me. And that's just the Phobia deck. And then there's the Curious Characters deck. Now this Curious Characters deck is actually really cool because it also doubles. Believe it or not, it actually also doubles. A little instruction card. It also doubles as makeshift pre-made generated character card sheets because you got a piece of artwork on the front, and then on the back side of this, you got an old-timey 1920-ish or 1910s photo, and on the back side you have all the stats for the character, and you have 48 cards in here, and that's literally 48 pre-made characters you can either use as NPCs in a campaign, or if a player is having a difficult time trying to come up with a character, it's like, here you go. You can use this. You can use Artemis Reaver if you want, and hand that to them, and they can copy that down, and they can just play with that character. Albury Pike Temple. You got a nice variety in here of all kinds of people from different social class levels and races, at least as far as the 1920s is concerned. Give you a few examples of art photographs. And then show you the back again. It has everything you need to play out a character. And as I said, it has a really nice selection of characters in here. Actually, I think I've seen these photos before in documentaries. Maybe like Ken Burns or something. When I was a kid, I used to watch a lot of PBS. It actually has come quite handy for me in tabletop gaming. Just end up randomly knowing fun, quirky facts. It's because you used to watch Nature and Nova and National Geographic and American Scientific America or whatever, or Secrets of the Dead. And then this is the Unfortunate Events deck. Oh, this is nice. This deck, by the way, there is a warning card on this deck. warning you about, oh no, this is a rather unfortunate card deck. There's some blanky cards that you can write down your own ideas on. It's nice that they include those. I've actually posted stuff to like Discord and had other companies post my videos to Discord or Twitter and something, and I've like seen the comments from people. It's like open blank spots and modules and blank cards. That's stupid. I pay good money for a complete thing, and I'm like, it's nice enough that they include you extra cards, or someone leaves numerous houses and empty areas is in a map for you to add or homebrew stuff in. That is actual professional job, not an amateur job where they have to like they're counting the words on their entry. Just flip it around the other way. You get some fun photos of some rather serious things. Bad squid being watched. Ooh, you're being watched really closely. You know, all kinds of fun stuff. And there's like 48 cards of those, and it's all excellent artwork, and I really do like it. These are great for like brainstorming situations before games, but also like if you are like your party's just its the intensity is slowing down, you can shuffle this deck through, and then you could pull out 3 or 4 cards, and whatever 3 or 4 cards you see, you might see something in there like, yeah, that like you feel like someone is watching you, and that night you have a bad dream because you were being being followed during it by creepy eyes. And then you realize you're missing in the area. You see photos of you all over the place. You're wondering like, what's up with this? I'm right here. I've been missing how long? And no one sees you, but you feel like you're being followed. And then you start hearing a strange melody. And then you can just like read the back of the card. And if you want to use the mechanic on the back of the card, you can, because there is indeed mechanics back there. Like there's whack, and whack has on the back of the card a sudden, irresistible, and massive invisible force whacks you, sending you hurling to the ground some distance from where you were standing. Make a dex roll. On a success, lose 1d4 hit points damage and fall to the floor. Failure, lose 1d6 hit points damage and fall unconscious for 1d10 rounds. Yes, indeed. It's quite good fun. I couldn't have come up with something better for that. I don't have a script for these videos. I kind of just go off the cuff because I'm a kind of person who is like, I'm not going to plan out perfect little jokes or something. I'm not going to like have a company contact me and like, hey, you could do a review or show off our stuff, and here's, by the way, a script with some bullet points. And I'm like, no. Shit, no. I generally am a positive person when it comes to this stuff. So I usually always try to look to, if I buy something and I look at it and I like, well, this is kind of neat. And by the way, this is actually the Artifacts and Weapons deck. How to use the Artifacts and Weapons deck. On the back side, you got the disclaimer card with the credits. And you got a 12 gauge shotgun click, click. Actually, that's the wrong sound. You got stats for the gun on the back side and some information. You got a 20 gauge shotgun, a 22 automatic, short automatic. You got a bolt action. You got a .25 Derringer. You got a lot of delightful artwork. He's pulling out his handgun. He sees a creepy, scary thing. Yes, indeed. That looks like some kind of butterfly or something. Or actually, specifically a moth. You got a nice variety of armaments. And there's 48 cards in here. A good front half of this. AK-47, 74, AK-74, and an AK-47. Some of these cards are more modern weapons, and some of them are more old school and classic tools of pugilism. Burning Torch. And then, as I said, there is also, elephant gun. There's also, in here, a hand grenade. But there's also some artifacts in here, too. Not very many, though. Say, like, almost the whole front end of it is weapons. And then you only have a few cards of artifacts. Like the Starstone of Mania. Got a sword cane. A taser gun. That's not even an artifact. That's a taser. A Thompson. It's not even really a whole lot. I had to flip through again. There's a artifact. There's a artifact. I've come across a artifact. There's not very many artifacts in here. I just completely remembered, hey, there's not a whole lot of artifacts in here. There's a mist projector and Migo web armor, but it's mostly weapons. Machete, mace, lightning gun. That's a weapon, but it's also technically an artifact. A fin fowl. For those earlier Call of Duty fans. Electric gun. Yeah, it's mostly, you got some artifacts in here. They're spread through the whole pile. But anyways, this is actually a really nice collection overall of basic weaponry and tools. Oh, there's a brain cylinder with a Migo. It's mostly the Migo with a brain cylinder. And considering that they have claws and they pick up the brain like that, it's like, I don't wonder. This is mostly weaponry with some artifacts, and some of the artifacts are weapons. So it's still pretty cool. You know, it's probably the more common stuff you be coming across for your characters. So there you go. This is actually a very nice collection of cards. I do very much enjoy them. These were produced in, the copyright on these are 2016. I usually keep sleeves in these, so it's easier to put them back in. However, I removed the sleeves from these a long time ago because I was using for various things and for games, and never put the sleeves back on the cards. I usually don't study these decks too deeply, particularly the weapons deck, because when it comes to Call of Cthulhu, you don't spend a whole lot of time in playing with weapons. It's not really a combat-oriented game. It's more of an investigation, horror, mystery game, and yeah, you could slide it towards combat, but that's just kind of its thing. Some people like Seth Sarkowski kind of transform Call of Cthulhu into more of a slightly heavier combat game. But from studies into that about, say, from Chaosium and stuff like that, and and Sandy Peterson, is that largely that good chunk of that combat is actually a byproduct of competing with Dungeons and Dragons and the apparent popularity of Dungeons and Dragons, and Dungeons and Dragons being as combat oriented as it is. It's basically like people immediately finding out you have a TTRPG and then being really curious about the combat of said TTRPG, as if it's a inherently intrinsic characteristic that all TTRPGs are focused entirely around combat, or largely focused around combat. So that's kind of the combat in Call of Cthulhu is literally, it does occur, but it's not the focus of the game. But if you really wanted to, you could make it the focus of the game. It's just really dangerous. Your character should play Call of Cthulhu combat as if it's combat of war as opposed to combat of theater. Which is interesting because the rest of the game is very conducive to theater. Story play. So, interesting. Where Dungeons and Dragons, a lot of people are getting into that and making it more into theater when it's a game system that is more built towards combat and action. So, alrighty. I do say that if you're a keeper in Call of Cthulhu, I would definitely buy these decks because they are going to be great brain food for your campaigns. They're going to be really cool reference points. If you have, you could study the mania. You can use the Curious Characters deck as for NPCs and player characters. You can use the Phobias deck as reference source for phobias on the table, and as a quick draw, you can like quickly have a player draw 3 or 4 cards, and then whatever card happens to be the closest one to the situation, that's the phobia they get. However, in that case, you're not very likely to get an accurate phobia. To get have a phobia deck that is truly good, you would have to have like 300 cards, and having people randomly draw from that at like 5 or 6 cards is not going to work. Unfortunate Events deck is great for story aids and all kinds of fun stuff for adding a touch more action to a situation. The Weapons and Artifacts deck is a good reference deck for items. Like, you could like pull out some cards and you like just happen to like you happen to find this weapon, this handgun or something or other in this drawer, and you just hand the person the handgun card, and you just tell them to copy it down on their sheet and put all the information on it, and they just hand you back the card, as opposed to them having to flip through a bunch of pages in their book. So there you go. I do really like this. I would probably put this like around a 4-star. It's so handy dandy. Probably the one that is probably the least easily usable is the Phobia deck of the 4. The Weapons and Artifacts deck is always useful in a more action-oriented campaign. The Unfortunate deck is great for story elements, and if you need characters and not the time to build them out yourself, or your players show up without a character and or their character dies and you need a quick one, you got a character card deck. So yeah, I say it's like a 4-star situation. I do like them a lot. So thank you very much for watching this video. I just happen to have the room. I have my cases here The next deck I'm going to show off is actually going to be the Pathfinder 2nd Edition spell cards, specifically the arcane spell cards. And I'm going to move through all the spell card decks up to wherever I end up with the spell cards, or it's by time I get done with them. And then I'm going to go through the gameplay mechanic decks and supplemental rules decks, playing aid decks, as well as the item decks for Pathfinder 2nd Edition. I have a large pile of them. Actually, see, I just literally have them all lined up right here. Record the next one after that. Take my Rune Quest. Traveler 5 deck out of the way. And thank you very much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and see you next time.